Guys, today we're going to look at mathematical proof for beginners. So I'm going to talk about kind of like generally talk about proof. I'll go to the method of mathematical proof later in my later videos. But today I'm just going to generally talk about two things that's really important in any kind of mathematical proof. So how about, let's for example, in one of the earlier video that I made, I have this proof. So let's say prove that if a, b, so two numbers, a, b are odd integers, then their product, so like a times b, is also an odd integer. So I want to prove this. So a lot of people that are not familiar with mathematical proof, so the first thing they do when they see such a question is that they just think, well, let's say a is equal to 5. 5 is an odd integer, right? It's an integer and it's odd. And then you have b equal, they just set another integer, odd integer, which is like 7. 7 is like odd and an integer at the same time. So they say that if I multiply a by b, which is like 5 times 7, I get 35. 35 is an odd integer. Therefore, I just prove that if I have an odd integer and then times it by another odd integer, it will give me an odd integer. So therefore, I just prove it. Well, that's false. If you do this in your math exam, you get like a 0. Simply because one of the most important reason is that let's say if you prove that if a is 5 and b is 7, a times b is 35, then how are you gonna prove that if this is only two odd integer that you take out of all the infinite number of integer out of all the real numbers? How are you gonna prove that other integer, when you multiply them together, they're odd as well, right? How are you gonna prove that? You literally just give me 5 and 7. There's infinite number of odd integer in the whole real number section. How are you gonna prove that maybe 11 times 13 is gonna give me an odd integer as well? Well, you say, isn't that obvious? I just times 11 by 13. I get another number, which is an odd integer. So therefore, my proof is right. No, you're wrong, because there's infinite number of odd integer. You can't prove each one of them. When you multiply them together, they're gonna be an odd integer. You might say, well, that's kind of obvious that, like, I already shown like 5 examples. 5 examples is not enough. You will never ever get enough example to prove that infinite number of all integer in the all real number set. Every one of them, if you multiply any one of them, you get like all integer, right? You can never prove that, because that's one of the first pretty important principle about mathematical proof that people don't realize, because they often think that if you give an example, I just prove my point. No, because if you only prove your point for this scenario where a is 5 and b is 7. You haven't proven for other scenario, and there's like infinite scenarios out there, because there are infinite numbers of odd integer in the whole real number integer set, right? So that's gonna be the first mistake. Let's start to write it down. In proof, actually, you know what? I should change it to in trying to prove something. Examples won't work. So that's one point. Second point is kind of similar to the first point, but it's disapproving something. So you're disapproving a statement, right? But this time, when you're disapproving a statement, you can just simply give out a example that is like, let's say the statement that if X is an animal, then X is a dog. I can't remember what she said. Right? So how would you prove this statement false? You simply say that, well, why? X could be cat. Cat also is a part of an animal, but it's not dog. So therefore, you just proven the statement wrong. So you see, in trying to prove something that is right, such as the statement above, you have to kind of like rearrange in algebraic ways. But to prove something that is to prove a statement that it is wrong, you just have to give a counter example to the statement, and it should work. Right. So in this case, if X is an animal, then X is a dog. So I just bring out a counter example where it could be a cat. Cat is an animal, right? But it's not a dog. So therefore, I just proved this statement wrong. So remember, in trying to prove something right, examples usually don't work. But trying to prove something wrong, you can just give one example of counterexample, because all it takes is one counterexample for the statement to be untrue, right? So just put that in mind. And in later videos, I will introduce method of actually how do you prove something algebraically and stuff like that. Like there are different methods. There's like contradiction. There's direct proof. There's proof by induction. But I'll talk about those proof in later video. If you're interested in this proof right here up here, I already made a video about it, which I'll put in the description if you would like to check it out. So thank you.